Hold on. There we go. Well, that's my audio. There we go. That's my. Say something, Matt. There we go. That's my. Say something, Matt. There we go. That's my. Say something. Yeah, maybe whoever's watching just confirm that you have. Yeah, maybe whoever's watching Matt and I confirm. This is a very impromptu kind of stream. Matt and I confirm. This is on my non-streaming rig. On my non-streaming rig. Go over. On my non-streaming basically the comp, right? Like as it currently stands, we're days away. Like as it currently stands, Taiwan time it is, and also US time. It is currently Saturday, the 30th of May, and also US time. And Tuesday morning Taiwan time. So Monday night US East Coast time. Will be the start of the comp. East Coast time. So it's is it less than 48 hours now? No, 48 hours would be is it less than 48 so it's less than 72 hours away. 72 hours. Exciting, right? 72 hours. Exciting, right? 72 hours. Exciting, right? Exciting, right? Exciting, right? Exciting, right? Exciting, right? Exciting, right? I'm just trying to get your video in. Do you I'm just trying to get your video in how that all works? I'm just trying to get your video in how that all works. I'm just trying to get your video in how that all works. I'm just trying to get your video in how that all yeah, like an input. Yeah, like an input. Okay. I think I'm getting there. Okay. I think I'm getting there. Oh no! Someone says there's an echo. Oh no! Someone says there's an echo. Oh no! Someone says there's an echo. Oh no! Okay. Well, it's not like we're in any kind of rush, so let me do the usual thing of diagnosing 15 different things and then not fixing it. A lot of things and then not fixing it. A lot of things and then not fixing it. A lot of go for 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 it. Okay, hold on. I will literally. A lot of I will literally. I'm gonna slowly reintroduce the audio. So now people on the stream should hear me only. Still no echo, right? I'm trying to just process. Okay, cool. Okay, I've added you back in. So if people could just quickly confirm. Now it's fine. Okay. Yeah, so I was doing the dumb thing of obviously if I'm feeding my desktop audio into the stream and I have my own stream playing unmuted, that's a bit of a problem. Uh, okay, so we were talking about G-Skill, so I'm gonna throw the link into the chat as well, just so people can scroll along if they want to. But essentially, a little while ago, oh, I still need to get your video in actually. I should be able to add that pretty easily. Which is, how do I do that? I add a window. I've done this a million times, but go for it. Correct. One second. Now your audio's gone. I don't know how that happened, but um, my output device needs to be. God, how does any of this work really? Um, I could feed it straight in from Discord. Actually, I don't have to rely on the desktop audio crutch, because it seems like when I muted my stream, it did something else too. So let's. It's an audio output capture, right? Um, I always ask this question. I'm gonna call it Matt, and I'm gonna see if I can. Yeah, if I could just
All
capture my own
right.
headphones. Okay, now you should be there.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Tome K Mac. Can you? Is it Tomic Matt Mac? I think it's probably Tomic Mac. I always say Tome K Mac, but I think it's Tomic Mac. Um, let me know if I'm wrong. I really want to get the names right. But anyway, moving on. Today we've got the stages, and the stages are up on the HWBot website, and we have DDR5 memory frequency valid. Like, big surprise. SuperPi 32M, big surprise. 7-zip, big surprise. Biprime, big surprise. Y Cruncher, big surprise. Like, none of these are surprises, except we have Evolve, a new benchmark, which I've never even run. I might need to put it on my test bench, get a modern setup on my test bench so I can actually run it. From what I understand, you need to have a ray tracing capable GPU, and this is actually going to integrate the iGPU for this stage, which I'm curious, Unity, if you can give me some feedback. I'm not sure if the Apex has a video output, which means they might have to use a different motherboard.
Um, you're half right. It does not have a dedicated video out, but it does have DisplayPort via USB-C, and I believe that's what they're going to use. So yeah, you're right in the sense that like the designers didn't dedicate any space to it on the I/O like they usually do on the Apex, but it does have like chipset support or whatever for tunneling display port via USB-C.
So I'm actually gonna check out a couple other of these motherboards, see if any of them, the available motherboards, have any sort of native display output, because I wonder if that could, if they're going to make, if they do have that option, if they would make everyone use the USB Type C to DisplayPort, or if somebody using, like, say, the X870 Tachyon. I'm looking now if any of them have the display out. You know, off the top of your head, or are we going to be doing a little bit of research here?
Let's do the research. I just a general statement is the way
Ooh.
that boards have gone. They pretty much all of the top end boards these days support USB-C display out.
Well, so far the uh, Tachyon Ice does have an HDMI out.
Yeah, and I'm going to check the OC formula. While we're on the topic of the OC formula, you and I, we've both kind of had a little bit of a oversight in previous streams where we sort of incorrectly assumed or stated that 8 benchers were on the Apex and Surge was on the Tachyon.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7 benchers on the Apex, and Hansky is on the OCF. So that's cool to see 3 different vendors.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited about that. So from what I'm seeing right now, only one, I you can tell me if the Tachyon does, but right now only the Z890 Aorus Tachyon Ice, from what I see, has the HDMI output
Yeah, and I'm just
native.
showing it on the stream right now for the OCF. So it doesn't have HDMI or DisplayPort, but they're claiming on the specs page actually up to two external displays via the usual method of USB-C tunneling of DisplayPort. So that's good enough.
I'm curious if somebody uses, I don't know if anyone is, but if they use the Tachyon Ice, if there's some advantage to HDMI out.
Um, in many cases, there could be. Oh wow, have we lost your audio again? Can you just say something? This is
Yeah,
wild.
I'm.
Yeah, you're there. You're there.
This is
Okay.
really strange. Okay, cool.
Um,
I'm I'm curious. That would be really crazy if you could like gain a meta advantage by using HDMI.
yeah. So the general statement would be, it doesn't hurt to have a lower latency interface. Like, in a perfect world, you would actually run VGA because VGA is the lowest latency standard that exists. So
Hmm.
VGA, generally speaking, VGA is the fastest. Next would be DVI. Next after that would be DisplayPort. Next after that is HDMI. And then comes all the fancy stuff via like docks and dongles and adapters. Um, but considering, I did ask Leak one specific question. I was like, okay, there was no 3D last year, and there is this year. Would you mind just telling me how you expect this to score in terms of FPS? And the number he gave me was quite low. It was double digit. So
Hmm.
the closer you get to 0 FPS, the less the latency really matters, because it's kind of a ratio between your frame time and the latency, right? Like if you're,
Hmm.
the time per frame is obviously inversely proportional to the FPS, right? So if you have 1,000 FPS, the time per frame is shorter than if you have 1 FPS. But the latency is a constant. So as a percentage of the overall performance, the lower the FPS goes, the less the latency matters.
Hmm.
Because you're basically, the latency is taking away a percentage of the performance per frame. But if a frame lasts 100 milliseconds and the latency is 1 millisecond, you kind of don't care. But if a frame,
Gotcha.
in the case of like O3, for example, a frame might, I haven't done the math, but it may only last in the nanoseconds kind of thing. If you're at like 5,000, 10,000 at peak FPS, yet you're still incurring, I don't know, I'm making up numbers, but a 1 millisecond latency round trip, or one way, whatever way it works, then it becomes significant. But because we're talking, maybe at the lows it might even be single digits since we're talking
Yeah.
iGPU on a modern bench. But on average, the judges have indicated to me that it'll be in the two-digit sort of range. I don't think it's going to end up being significant. Especially since you're
Okay.
talking iGPU clocking, which means subtimings, tertiaries, whatever, are so important. You're better
Yep.
off putting your time and focus on that. But it's a valid question for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I'm also wondering, which I don't know if you can even do this with Intel iGPUs, but you know how on, and they would probably have the settings predetermined as to what you're allowed to use. And maybe it's just the default settings, but if there's any sort of LOD or um, anti-aliasing settings that you can change, if that would somehow impact the performance and if guys are able to kind of like skirt the rules a little bit by doing that.
This isn't really, really. Sorry, I'm totally sidetracking here, but I'm finding a really interesting, I guess, limitation in OBS where, because I am capturing audio directly from Discord, it's not simultaneously allowing me to capture video from Discord because it's the same window. So I
Oh my
apologize, but I can't get
gosh.
your video up. Um, yeah, but it is what it is. Like, audio is obviously more important. People know what you look like. You know, they can just imagine.
Yeah,
um,
they're not missing out on a whole lot.
I mean, I do like your backdrop. It's pretty impressive. Um, yeah, I'm excited, man. Like, let's just maybe get back to the basics. Like, I love, like, now that it's like a done deal, I can talk about the fact that there was like a bit of a brainstorming session last year and everyone threw their ideas into the hat. And I didn't say, let's do Evolve, but what I said was, we need more benchmark diversity. You know, whatever you
Hmm.
do, just push the benchers outside of their comfort zone of the same old 7-zip, Y cruncher, Pi prime, 32M, memory valid, you know, and Evolve is exactly that because nobody has a fucking idea how to bench that. So that's perfect.
I completely agree. It's definitely throwing a wrench into things, and it's gonna be. I expect we're gonna see somebody like coming out of the woodworks to maybe not dominate in the other stages, but maybe spend a little bit more time figuring out Evolve. And it would be really cool if we had somebody that like just cleaned house with that benchmark.
Yeah.
Maybe not win the other ones, but it would be cool to have like a little bit of a prize, not even a prize, but just a special like this person completely owned everyone else in this benchmark. Because as we've seen in the past, like it can come down very much to IMC on the CPU. And I think last year we learned that it was more of a limitation of the IMC and the CPU, and you have to figure out optimal temperatures and stuff. And all the memory sticks were in theory within a certain range of quality. So if we could find out a way to optimize the Evolve benchmark where you're not quite as CPU dependent, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
Meanwhile, I've pulled up the Tachyon specs as well. The only thing that kind of stands out to me a little bit is that the Tachyon only claims support up to 60 hertz, and the ASRock claims support up to 120. So
Hmm.
I have not benched Evolve, like you may be able to hear. I'm kind of getting over a cold, and I've obviously been busy with preparing the stream and stuff. But I would speculate that if there are parts of the GT that allow for higher frame rates, which are like they have low detail or whatever, and they get into that 60 to 120 FPS range, then intuitively an output that lets you run at 120 hertz could potentially score better, but it's all kind of up in the air because these pages can have errors in them,
Hmm.
and even if this is like the actual spec, that's not to say you can't go into the Intel driver and maybe somehow define a custom resolution and force 120 hertz through it.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the
Well, and
end
that
of the day, right, these manufacturers, they're not like when they're like quality testing motherboards, they're not focusing on iGPU, right?
no.
And like the physical connector is the same. The monitor on the other end is supplied, so that's going to be the same. And the driver on the OS will also be the same. So essentially what I'm saying is if ASRock claim 120 hertz support, that implies that 120 hertz is possible in the driver. And maybe Gigabyte just they just didn't research through the spec page. Maybe they just like AI'd it or something. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
only if the spec pages are 100% correct is there a possibility of an advantage. But there's a possibility, which is already kind of interesting, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I will be right back. I have to take care of something very quickly.
All
So
good.
if you could hold down the fort
I'll
for
keep
just
going
like
through
2 minutes.
Evolve.
Sorry.
Yeah, take your time. Yeah, so while we have the chance, let's also because it's this is like educational for me too to see the spec page and see what's kind of claimed to be true and all that. Tech specs. Ooh, I hope I want to stay in English, please. So like I said, The OCF claims only up to six. Well, it claims 120 hertz, and the Tachyon claims 60. What does the Apex claim? So two display outs. That's kind of um, DisplayPort alt mode, 2.1. Yeah, 60 hertz. So the Apex, while you were gone, Matt, the Apex also only claims 60 hertz,
Ooh,
and it
yeah, that's going to be interesting.
it goes to pains to specify display stream compression, which is something we like to disable as benchers because that adds latency as well. Um, but I think what it's trying to say with that spec is that 8K at 60 hertz is only supported with DSC, whereas I would assume if Evolve is not an 8K bench. Therefore, if you set like a 4K res or whatever the bench res is, it should toggle off DSC, but it's certainly something worth exploring. Um, ooh,
Something else I would like to state that may or may not be relevant. It's not relevant to a lot of benchmarks, but there is one benchmark in particular, which is Ice Storm,
yeah.
that benefits dramatically from a lower screen resolution.
Yes, but
So it
it's
would be
specifically the
very
desktop res, not the bench res, right? Because so first of all, changing the
correct.
bench res makes your score invalid, but
Correct.
also
But if you
it doesn't do anything. It doesn't give you that same boost.
correct, it doesn't give you the same boost, but I've noticed, and I actually tested this personally, so I can, it's not just me speculating on what somebody else has said. If you lower it, you can lower it to a certain resolution, and then if you lower it too much, your score actually goes back down. So there is an optimal resolution for that benchmark. And I'm very curious if Evolve has that. And if so, are the guys going to take the time to actually try and figure that out?
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. I mean, I've heard crazier things like um, X265 sometimes benefits from higher desktop refresh rate, even though it's a 2D bench, which doesn't make any sense, but it's real. Very much worth pointing out. I have zero details on this, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell them here. Um, in order to make it an even fresher bench than it already is, the version of Evolve that will be benched during this competition has been broken out into a separate ranking because it'll be slightly different. Uh, Different
Mm-hmm.
in what way? No idea. And like I say, if I knew, I wouldn't tell. But you can already see in the rankings that a second like bench has been created. I wonder what's under
Mm-hmm.
there. That's new. So no rules page, no rankings, and there is a download link, but that just goes to the same place. So this is just a placeholder. So we can't know what we can't know, right? So let's go to the existing evolve definition. Also no rules. Fun. So anything goes. Just press run.
Yeah.
But I see that Spokey has a 1590 run there, and he's one of the competitors. So let's see. Let's have a look at his screenshot to see what we can glean from that. Um, so the first thing that kind of jumps out at me is that there is no actual FPS number stated in the results screen.
Mm-hmm.
And also the
Yep.
subtests look interesting. So acceleration structure build, compute score, ray tracing score, rasterization score, driver score, energy score. So I can only guess which one of those are actual 3D subtests. I guess ray tracing and rasterization are a done deal. But immediately, what I may try and test tomorrow, I guess, is to see is that compute done on the CPU or the GPU or both. Because what we know from GPU Pi is both your CPU and your GPU are capable of compute. So just by looking at the name compute, I can't tell, you know. um, and Evolve.
Another thing I would like to point out really quickly, sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt,
go for it.
but Purity is barely higher score than Spokey. Literally 2 points. No, it's not 2 points. It's like 62 points. But he's running a 13,700K, so more higher core count than Spokey, who is running a 14,600 KF,
Hmm.
which implies that this doesn't necessarily scale crazy with the CPU core count. So
Yeah,
this is going to be very interesting. Obviously, all the competitors are going to be at the same core count, so that doesn't really matter. And they're going to be running Core Ultra instead of Raptor Lake, which is, again, they're all going to be the same, but it does make things very interesting that I think this is going to be very heavily GPU bound,
for
which
sure.
I think is fantastic because I think they were both running 5090s as well.
I probably shouldn't have launched my Steam. I do have it installed on my laptop here, so I may give it a play later, or tomorrow at the latest. Interesting. Like some people like hate this. Like they like to just really understand a bench from A to Z. But I actually like the fact that we're looking at something that we can't intuitively even say how it's going to scale, how much it's going to scale, what it's going to like and dislike. And
Mm-hmm.
like I say, I don't know what changes will be in the competition binary, which will be different to some degree to what you can get on Steam right now. But I like the fact that the competitors, I don't know, actually know when they're getting the binary. I believe it is when they get their OS, which is also judge supplied. But they essentially have in the order of a day or two to play with it, which is, for me, like my personal opinion, that is exactly the right amount of time. Like I would probably even go lower than that, but I like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they don't have 3 months to like go into every fine detail because I don't know. I think this is very much wishful thinking, but I think that a competition like this should bring out like the talented people, not the preparedness. Like there's a difference, right? Like if somebody has the luxury of being able to spend 10, 20, 30 hours a week for months on end to prepare, does that mean they're a good
Yeah.
bencher or they just have a lot of free time, there's a difference there.
Well, and I hate to continually bring this back to a Formula One reference, but I don't, and you're probably aware, back in the 90s and I think the 2000s, mid 2000s, there was an unlimited budget and unlimited prep time. So Ferrari in particular would run lap after lap after lap after lap in their cars to prepare for the races. So they would get so much more data than the companies that could not afford to. And then they restricted the amount of laps you can test your car in. In fact, I think there's no testing outside of the pre-testing sessions at the beginning of the season. So all of their work has to be done in a simulator, which, while it can give you useful data, if you watch the last race, Lewis Hamilton specifically avoided using the simulator because he said it wasn't translating well to uh, on track per what's the best way to put it, it wasn't translating well to how he performed on track. There would be nuances that kind of threw him off, and he had prepared too much for one thing and it didn't translate into real world scenarios. So he avoided the simulator and he had his best performance that he's ever had with Ferrari in the last F1 race. So I completely agree that limiting the amount of preparation somebody can do is fantastic. And I would almost say it would be cool to see them do something like, instead of maybe Super Pi 32M, they're doing like something like Super Pi 16M,
Yeah.
because that might, like, if people are preparing for 32M the whole time and then they get thrown 16M, it's going to be significantly shorter, but the timings that are optimal for 32M may not translate to 16M. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, but I think I completely agree that limiting their ability to prepare for something is just the best way to anticipate somebody's actual talent.
Yeah, and Evolve is going to be so interesting because um, there is the only clock that is actually unlimited is memory clock, because there's an overarching CPU clock limit, there's an overarching cache clock limit, there's the IG whatever that other clock is on Arrow Lake that I don't understand. That's also limited to a certain multiplier. And then for this stage specifically, they're implementing an iGPU clock as well, which is 2.5, which sounds very low because Massman on the world record stage last year did 4G on that particular iGPU. So that is a very low limit. So the only thing you have to play with is memory clock and memory like settings and timings. So it's going to be all OS and reruns. And what if this is a bench that just scores the same all the time? So then reruns are also out of the picture. So then it kind of becomes this thing of, do you maybe even not spend any time on it? Because, like, I sort of wonder, with all the other clocks as restricted as they are, how much it's gonna end up scaling with memory. It could go either way. It could be like, that's the deciding factor. That's the only wheel you can turn. So you got to crank the memory an insane amount. Or it could go the way of, well, it's so bottlenecked by everything else. Actually, just air the memory and load a profile and just run it 2 or 3 times and move on to the other 5 stages. And I
I
cannot predict what way it's going to go.
I would assume that's not the case. I think that they would have done plenty of testing to see some sort of scaling from memory tuning. Otherwise, they wouldn't have included it. So the other thing, which I don't know how they've addressed this, I think there was some discussion, and I don't know, so don't quote me here, but I'm wondering if having a higher reference clock, so BCLK, would improve things from a latency standpoint instead of running higher multipliers. So if you could run a lower multiplier and still keep it in that optimal window for 6 gigahertz core, 5 gigahertz cache, and then 2500 megahertz iGPU, I'm really wondering if that will somehow help, especially since if you think about it, the connectivity between, I don't know if the display output, yeah, see, that's the thing. The display output is going to have to run through the chipset on the motherboard if you're using the USB Type C. Whereas if you're using if somebody has the motherboard with the HDMI out, I think that's connected directly to the CPU. So correct me if I'm wrong. I very well could be wrong about this, but I would assume you could have latency issues there.
Yeah, a lot to think about. I mean, generally on modern platforms, the whole latency and B clock thing isn't as pronounced as it was,
Hmm.
just because like the architectures work differently to how they used to work. And with high B clock, you also run the risk of accidentally producing invalid scores, because if you leave the B clock at stock, you can kind of assume that the amount of clock drift you get is kind of consistent between different boots. So if you stay at
Hmm.
100 and it turns out to be 100.6, let's say, and that then means you're slightly over, so then you go like a quarter of a multi down or whatever. You just kind of work that out once and then forget about it. Whereas
Hmm.
if B clock is one of the things you're actively tuning throughout the session, it's so easy to have a result at the end that is out of spec, or out of the clock limits. And what pops to mind for me now as well is, how is that stuff verified? Because I don't believe we have Benchmade integration. So maybe, I mean, I haven't seen it in the rules page, but maybe they will kind of enforce stock B clock, because the problem with B clock is it can be adjusted in OS.
Hmm.
So the whole thing of how are they gonna judge all this? Because I don't know what sophistication of mid run monitoring Evolve has. I mean, 3Mark has a decent amount of that. Evolve, no clue. But for example, this mysterious other ratio, is it called the IGD or whatever, does not show up in CPU Z. So last year, what they got the competitors to do is, since it's a multiplier that's not adjustable in OS, and I think it also doesn't hang off of B clock. I may be wrong, or maybe they enforced 100 B clock, something along those lines. They basically told, they installed hardware info on every OS and told the competitors every boot, you gotta actually in person show a judge your IGT,
Hmm.
because it's not adjustable in OS. But if we're starting to allow in OS B clock, what's to stop someone from putting a nice flat 100 being like, look, I'm within all the limits. And then as soon as the judge walks away, they're like, okay, let's give us another 5B clock, do the run quickly, and then go back down to 100 for the screenshot. I just don't know.
That's
There's
exactly what I'm worried about because I'm looking at the Evolve. So there is a verification URL for the Evolve benchmark, and it's showing 3.5 gigahertz for the processor speed on the 14600 KF, which, unless you are manually applying 3.5 gigahertz on that for a fixed multiplier, there is no way it's running that slow. So it's not, it looks like it's not accurately representing the frequency of the processors. And the GPU looks like it might be. I don't know. I'm assuming these Intel iGPUs don't have like a turbo boost the like modern graphics cards like an RTX 5090 does. I'm assuming it's going to be a fixed clock speed. But if it has some sort of boost technology, you could be like, hey, look, my iGPU is showing 2.5 gigahertz. And then, but you've got a boost enabled. And so mid run, it's like boosting up to something higher. That would be interesting.
Yeah. This is like a Yoss question. He would know exactly how to apply LOD on Intel and boost on Intel. That's completely down his alley. Um,
Yeah.
I can kind of reveal some of these mysteries in the coming days, because I mean, I have a streaming rig here that has B clock control, not in OS, but at least I can, reboot at a different B clock and see what happens. I have a laptop in front of me that doesn't have B clock control, but I have Steam on there and I can run Evolve. But like, you can only make assumptions, right? Like, just because an Intel mobile platform performs a certain way doesn't mean that our lake is the same.
Hmm.
And my streaming rig isn't even the same vendor. It's AMD, AM5. So yeah, I'm sort of like, I love the inclusion, but it does make sense that only 1 out of 6 stages is like this. Because if they were throwing out 6 stages that are all completely new like this, it could turn into like a judging nightmare. Whereas
Oh, absolutely.
with only one stage, and that stage then only being scheduled for one of the two sessions for the groups, that seems manageable. Like, I think the judges will just sort of know and expect and accept that there will be a higher workload during that time.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's something you need to do carefully, because I'm looking at this valid page, and I mean, it's better than no valid, but I'm like, it shows me the same subtests as the screenshot, and it tells me some random crap that is just not really that relevant, like submission date. Yeah, of course it's today because it's a live call. Yeah, interesting
Yeah.
times. And while one of the times you were talking, I did a quick database search, and as it stands right now, there is not a single IGPU sub of any kind on the Evolve benchmark. So when I get off the stream, and run a random old run on my laptop and sub it. That'll be the first IGP run ever subbed to HardwareBot on Evolve. So people have done it on the 1590 just to get that global gold or whatever, but like
Yep.
there is just no data to work off of at all. So totally like greenfield approach right here.
Well, and what's going to be interesting is how much information we can glean from the competitors running it live. Like we'll get to see real time what these guys are doing as far as tweaks go in order to run this benchmark. And I do know that this was a collaboration with HWBot. The people that made the Evolve benchmark, I think, specifically asked HWBot to get involved, and so there should be some sort of safeguards there because they are very concerned. They were very concerned about building a good benchmark that properly represents the hardware being used.
For sure.
So I do think that there's some very serious effort being put in to make this as legitimate as possible, but we'll see if the creativity of the competitors can break the benchmark is basically what we're looking for here.
And what you would hope for if there is some sort of breaking bug or circumvention or tweak available, that it's found on day one, where just with how the time zones work and everything, if Evolve is like if their developers are in Europe or the US, the judges could even just send logs to them that day and say, hey, can you just, is there any possibility you can roll a quick fix? Because they're not being asked to make a new version of the benchmark for the public, right? It's just a new version of the benchmark for this specific competition that is like advertising the benchmark. So I think that's within the realm of possibility, but I'm thinking a little bit too far ahead. Like hopefully it's just a really nice benchmark to run, no bugs, and everyone has fun. Spit says,
Yep.
let's talk about XTU. Let's not today.
Nope, XTU is not part of the competition. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a joke. I don't know if "joke of a bench" is the proper term, but it's
It's
a cheese bench. Yeah. You can cheese hardware points with it pretty easily, because which is not a bad thing. It's kind of good that that exists to some capacity, but it's definitely a bit strange of a benchmark in that regard. Whereas some other benchmarks, you just like the people you're going up against for hardware points is like try hard mode for the top 50 subs. Whereas XTU, it's like 3 people ran this locked i5 at like try hard mode, and you just have to like kind of barely put in any effort to get a 52 pointer or something like that.
Yeah. Should we have a quick scan through the remaining stages for the qualifier?
Oh, we can. I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a whole lot to glean from this. I mean, valid is pretty self-explanatory,
Maybe just
and I.
to mention the fact that I think not last year, but in previous years, there was no toggle like in the HireBot database to stop people outside the comp from subbing. So that's why there's that line of only these exact 9 people can sub. And then also, in case anyone watching is curious, there has been a minor revision of the ice called the Tachyon Duo X ice. So adding the Duo and adding the X. I kind of had a look at the PCBs and stuff, and it's basically just same number of memory slots, same everything, but it kind of adds like support for like buffer DIMMs and double capacity DIMMs with like 4 ranks. So it's included in case someone wants to use it, but from all I can tell, in terms of benching, there's no difference with the regular Tachyon. But it is kind of unusual that the other 2 vendors only have 1 board each listed, but Gigabyte has 2. But that's just Gigabyte being Gigabyte.
I don't know who would have gone out and bought this specific
Yeah.
motherboard. Like that seems like a very strange purchase. Not saying anyone didn't do it, but I've not known a bencher that is like, I'm gonna buy this insanely expensive motherboard for kicks and giggles. Like they want some sort of evidence that it has any sort of advantage before they're going to go out and purchase it. Having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody ran it, just because why on earth would you include it as an option if nobody had that possibility? So it could be that somebody's getting a motherboard from a vendor or something, or maybe it's just a backup. I don't know.
Could be, could be. In terms of the other stages, I mean, this is kind of a carbon copy of last year. I mean, SuperPi 32M, 6 gigahertz limit on that, 7 zip, which also we had last year. Maybe the only difference being the core count limiting that we're seeing here. I don't remember last year, but it's not going to make a massive difference. PipeRAM 32B is also a massive staple of this competition by now. And Y Cruncher is similar. So, uh, any sort of final words on the qualifier? Or are we all sort of squared up in terms of what's going to happen? I mean, the format is the same with 2 sessions of 3 hours each per group. That was the same last year. What would be?
Yeah,
I
I don't.
mean, we both love Evolve, right? But let's just put that to one side. If if let's just put it this way: if you were competing on a live comp, winner takes all, single stage only. If it was your pick, which of the five would you pick?
Oh, valid for sure.
Wow.
I'm a valid kind of guy. I like hitting F7 on CPUZ. So, hey, by the way, if anyone watching didn't know that, F7 is the shortcut to saving a valid without having to click save, type in the name of the file, and then validating it. And I think it's a lot of fun. I've had very strange sessions where I remember this specifically on the Pentium 4 630 that I ran, which I had the 70 pointer on, and then Tag took it just for a whim, which was annoying. But I remember I got that gold on a really strange boot. Like I was, I had one boot where I was able to get just a much higher frequency valid than any other boot. I ran it for like 2 3 hours, and I just booted, and I just happened to be able to hit that clock speed once. I got nowhere close. I reran the CPU to try to take back my gold. Not a chance. So there's a bit of um, there can be a bit of anomaly there where you can get really lucky, and I think with the other benches, it's not there's not that chance. Like I having said that, it means that there's potentially less skill involved in valid, which lends itself to my type of benching because I need some luck to win. But there's a little bit of a mystery in valid, in my opinion. So that's my choice. What would be your choice?
As
I think I
as
know already.
an observer, I sort of agree. I think Valid is really cool to watch. But the question was, what would I want to bench? And I'm not a big fan of Valid at all. That would probably be towards the bottom of the list. I mean, I am a 32M fan, but the bastardization of it in this case, where it's both clock limited and forced onto Benchmade, yeah, not sure about that. Probably Pipe Prime. Y Cruncher is a bit too
Okay.
masochistic for me. Pipe Prime is like a nice happy medium of, it's not as pure as 32M, um, but it's not as like new fashion, modern, like fancy as Y Cruncher. Yeah, I'd go Pipe Prime. But they're kind of all similar. Seven Zip is the only sort of truly multi-core bench of the lot. Well, probably Evolve as well to some degree. Um, yeah. What do you think? Are you surprised by my pick, or do you think that's like you were kind of expecting that?
No, I'm a bit surprised. I would have said 32M based on your history and what our discussions in the past, but I also understand your rationale. I think Y Cruncher Y Cruncher and 7-Zip are the multi-core benchmarks. Pi
Yeah, true.
Prime doesn't care. So I think I agree with you that you're not relying. I mean, all of them, because of the clock limit, you're relying so heavily on the memory. And the thing that 7-Zip and Y Cruncher have in common is every tiny little tweak you do to the memory makes a massive difference. Whereas, yes, for Super Pi and 7-Zip, you're gonna need every timing to be perfect as well. But what you're talking about is milliseconds in
Yeah.
performance difference with the tuning of a handful of timings and frequency for Super Pi. Pi Prime is going to be you may see massive differences from one or two timing changes that are more optimal than the next bencher, and it's going to change with frequency. So I think that's a very good pick. Pi Prime is definitely going to be the one, and it's also not as heavy on the CPU itself as Y Cruncher, so I think you're going to have less to deal with as far as um, temperature control as you would with Y Cruncher, because as soon as Y Cruncher starts running, you've probably seen it on a full pot system, which I don't think these are, but on a full pot system, you just watch that LN2 boil like crazy, and you just watch the temperature. If you're not on a full pot system, you just watch that temp gauge on your LN2 pot just like bounce way up the moment you hit run. So I agree. Pi Prime is going to be a bit more, maybe the optimal skill benchmark.
Yeah, Arrow does a poly market. No, sorry, mate. I'm definitely banning you. No, 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 no. People. I'll have to get on my high horse here, but like we're ruining an entire generation of young people by normalizing betting and losing money and understand like having the odds for everything in your head. Like people were betting on the Iran conflict. Like it's just sick. I'm not a fan.
I'm with you 100%. Look, guys, my dad always said something, and this is obviously soapbox moment, but he said that gambling is a tax on the stupid. And
Ooh.
I while I do understand that you can use gambling per se or betting as a form of entertainment, you should never look at it as something that you can profit from. Like you should look at it as going to see the movies. You're spending money to enjoy a form of entertainment. And the problem with something like betting versus poker is it's so momentary. Your entertainment is over instantly, and you're either getting a dopamine crash, or a dopamine hit, and instantly based on the results. Whereas at least with poker, you're playing a game, you're interacting with others. There is some sort of activity involved. So I think that the betting markets are just completely. Think about it this way: the betting markets wouldn't put it there if the house wasn't winning. They wouldn't exist if the house wasn't winning all the time.
Yeah.
So
And when it's sort of like a somewhat informed adult doing it, it's still kind of okay. I mean, people still get addicted to it and ruin their lives. But what's something kind of new in the last 5 to 10 years is underage people and really young kids being involved in it, and that's where I draw the line. Like, I think that's just poison. Um,
mhm.
I mean, by the letter of the law, someone under 18 shouldn't bet, but it's all app based now, and there are so many parents who introduce their kids to gambling at a very young age. They're like, "Here's my phone, press the button you like," and I think it's just poisonous. And Australia is pretty bad for it. Like, you will go into a stadium, and depending on where you sit, there may be like a betting machine, like a touchscreen thing where you can put a wager down. like 2 or 3 rows away from where you're sitting. And
Wow.
I mean, the security people are supposed to tell underage people to get away from it if they try to bet, but how can you tell someone's under 18? It's not that easy, right? Um,
Right.
yeah, Spade agrees with me. He's an Aussie. He knows all about it. Like, and then there's so many aspects to it. Like in Australia, um, the way that the criminal gangs launder their money is they just go. They have like they basically pay people to carry dirty cash into a bar with one-armed bandits and have the people put the cash into the machine and then just take it straight back out again and then it's laundered. Like I could talk for hours about this topic. Anyway, to the person who got banned, who probably won't hear us, but who anyone else who's interested in some sort of betting on XOC, it's not happening on my channel. I can say that absolutely categorically. Go somewhere else if you need that fix. Okay, that was a massive tangent. I would like to briefly go through the groups if you're okay with that. I just have
Yeah.
the page already
do
pulled
that.
up. So let's see if I can get this image increased in size. Yeah, there we go. So this is what is public right now. So we know the groups. This is the live qualifier, which just for anyone who isn't aware, 9 people go to Taiwan to compete live on stage, 3 at a time. That's why the groups are 3 people. And they do a total of 6 hours of benching in 2 sessions. Computex itself is across 4 days, but the 4th day is reserved for the final, which is only between 3 benchers and happens in 1 session. That's the June the 5th column you see right there, and the little yellow label grand final. The first 3 days, that's 6 sessions, so a morning session and an afternoon session on each of the days. There are 9 benchers. Each group has 3 benchers in it, and they have 2 sessions each. So if you remember your elementary school math, 6 sessions, 3 groups, 2 sessions a group, right? And here's the grid, and a rough description of what is allowed. So it's kind of following the same format as last year, where there's a prescribed set of benches to be run in session 1, and then you're allowed to kind of clean up all the benchmarks in the second session. So that's why that text of all benchmarks are allowed is in there. So the idea being, ideally you get 4 benchmarks run in your first session, but sometimes you have condensation issues. Sometimes you're not happy with your score. The judges will allow you to run any of the 6 benches in the second half. They're also kind of jumbling around the groups a bit. If I'm remembering right, let's just call them Group A, B, and C, right? So like Group A is Surge, etc. B is Bisso, etc. C is Sebi, etc. The way that the schedule worked was to allow like the same kind of duration of break between the sessions. It was like ABC, ABC. It's not following that as far as I'm seeing on the schedule, unless I'm blind. Because
No, there's a little bit of a mix-up. So if you look on June 2nd, Surge Man is in the first group in the morning. And on June 4th, he's in the last group. Like, he's one of the last people to bench. So he's going to bench first thing in the morning on June 2nd, and then he's not going to bench till the afternoon of June 4th. So he's got a big window to do some testing, watch what other people are doing. So he'll glean his information from his sticks, and then he will move on to watch what everyone else is doing and maybe get some information. He might be watching our stream for quite a while. So you've got a little bit of that going on. I kind of like this because if you look, Sen's the reigning champion is not one of the last people to bench.
yeah,
So
and
that's
that is
gonna
considered to be an advantage because you know all the other scores. Or let's say you have 2 other people in your group. Those scores you may not know because they're kind of happening at the same time, but you know the other 6 scores. And because 3 qualify, essentially if you're beating the other known scores, you're guaranteed the final, because even if the other two in your group beat you, you don't kind of care because you'll still be third, which is enough to qualify. I also don't remember the groups being jumbled around like this. Like they were static last year. Like what I just said about
Mm-hmm.
Group A, B, and C doesn't really apply, because if you look at the composition of the groups, Sebi, for example, in the first session is together with Demon and Black Dot, but in the second session he's together with Surgeman and Demon. So
So here's something interesting. This is actually changes things up. So let me just spitball here. Say your Sebi. Oh, it's not gonna work. Oh, so Sebi and Demon are benching together on June 3rd and June 4th.
okay,
So there, I'm trying to see if there's any others that are going to be going head to head multiple times.
I don't believe so.
And yeah, but if you're if you're a Demon, you
I
could
stand
try and
corrected. Sens and Dede are both in the same group in both sessions.
so if you're Dede or Demon and you're trying to beat a former world champion, you have to do something on stage to sabotage. Like, oh no, I poured liquid nitrogen onto your motherboard. I'm so sorry. Like, because that's it's like Schumacher crashing into another driver on purpose to try and win the championship. Uh,
And this
so
gets onto the eternal discussion, actually, which I'd like to hear your opinion on. I'm going to make a basketball analogy. I know you're not a big fan of that. In basketball, you have 30 teams, 15 each in the conferences East and West, and then per conference, 8 go through. So already there's some
mhm,
sorting happening there, because it's not the best 16 teams, it's 8 in the East and 8 in the West, which means
mhm,
oftentimes eighth spot in the East is easier to get than eighth in the West. And people
mhm,
debate that. They say it should be the 16 best teams. But within that, there's also three, so it's called three divisions, sorry, yeah. So there's two conferences, and each conference has three divisions. And the division winner, so it's, what is it? Sorry, is it 32 teams? I'm mixing myself up, but no, I think the divisions are of different like size. But essentially, like a division will have four or five people, four or five teams in it, and the winner of that division um, gets like certain privileges. They're never seeded below fourth. So you could have some wonky scenarios where an entire division of teams is really, really strong, and by right should be seeded like one, two, three, and four in the conference.
yeah,
But because the other two division winners get a guaranteed worst fourth seed, like the whatever, like the second best team in the conference may end up being seeded like fifth or something. Um, so that's the basketball system. But here in XOC, we're doing the exact opposite, where the groups you're in mean absolutely nothing. The only thing it means is those are the scores you're seeing produced in real time next to you on the stage. That's the only thing it means. There's no
yeah.
consequence. You could have three guys from one group qualifying, or three guys from three different groups. Do you think that's like fair, or would you like to see the format kind of switch around a bit?
I mean, there's no perfect format. The analogy you're using in uh, the basketball can be applied to almost any sport in the United States. We have different football conferences for college football, and we've got different uh, leagues for baseball. Like all of our sports are structured like that. I prefer this setup because you're competing against everyone. It's made the best man win. Now, obviously, the advantage of being at the end of the competition and knowing what score you have to get gives you the ability to um, prioritize what benches you're focusing on. So there is an advantage there. But the way I've always looked at it, and this has come true for me so many times, where I just do the absolute best I can. And if somebody beats me, they either had a better chip, in which case I can't do anything, or they're just better than me, which is more frequent. And but as long as I put my best foot forward, there's nothing more I can do. Now, the difference here is this is a timed comp, whereas when you and I are competing in something like Team Cup or Country Cup, we've got months to get scores in, whereas these guys have literal minutes, hours maybe, for different scores. So there's the difference there. But I think this is the superior format overall. And if you're doing insanely well at the beginning, maybe no one can even touch it. I mean, that's kind of what we saw with Sens. I think his qualifying scores were dang near enough to win him the comp outright, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I actually do like this format. The thing that gets a bit tricky is when you're having to do sort of mental arithmetic in real time, right? Like you and I were casting last year, was it like the afternoon session of day 3 or something, where even we didn't have to pour LN2, we didn't have to compete, we didn't have to hit run, we didn't have to think about all of our benching. We struggled to work out all the permutations of, if this run finishes, is he qualified or not? Like, if this fun finishes, he's qualified, but only if the other guy on stage doesn't. It just gets very complicated. And it was great viewing as an observer, but I kind of wish, I know there's no perfect solution, I kind of wish the competitors didn't have to also consider that. I kind of wish there was some out of, if you smash the other 2 guys who are on stage, you're qualified. The end, I know it's harder to implement than that, but I sort of wish in a perfect world that was the case.
Well, in a perfect world, you've got everyone on the stage at the same time.
That's true too, yeah.
That's just not possible. So I really enjoyed that stream. I think that was the only time I was able to help. Maybe I did some on the last day. Sorry. I'm actually, before the stream this coming week for the competition, I'm going to put a giant sticky note on the top of my monitor that says, "Don't say." And I've thought about getting an counter so we can count how many times I say because that's something I've noticed with truly talented casters is they never have filler words like or like. So I'm going to try really hard to avoid that. That's the one thing I can actually do to make myself a better caster. Getting back to the point, with that second to last day was just so choice from a casting perspective. The excitement that we had as we're like trying to figure out who's going to bump each other out, because we were like, if this guy, there was a time where it was like, if this guy on stage gets the best score, even the top 3 in this one benchmark, it will bump a different competitor down and will promote Black Dot. I forget who it was, but it would promote Black Dot up into the finals. It was that crazy. So the person getting the score would not have enough points to make it to the finals, but they would get enough points to knock another competitor down, where a third competitor would be promoted. I thought that was gold. I thought that was casting gold. I don't know about you. It was really exciting. I understand from the competitor's perspective. It's like, son of a gun, you're just, and the other people are probably sitting there. The other competitors watching the stage are probably sitting there biting their teeth, hoping somebody doesn't get a score in.
Yeah.
But I do agree that it's got to be mental gymnastics for the competitors. But man, I loved it from a casting perspective.
For sure. You touched on the point of all 9 at the same time isn't possible. It's maybe just to flesh out that point a bit, it's not so much that there isn't enough LN2 or enough people to help pour the LN2 or enough like space or whatever. It's just that this is not the only thing going on at the G-Skill booth. you know, they're trying to sell their product. Like they have meeting rooms, they have like static displays of their RAM kits. They have a whole other section of extreme builds, which, you know, Shaggy, for example, is doing one of those, and Massaman is doing one. And even within the stage, there's kind of two halves where I'm going to pull that up now because why not? So because we've kind of chewed through this schedule a lot. So this is the other kind of event that G-Skill hosts, which is the so-called World Record Stage, which again we've got that 4-day format because the ever since COVID, I believe before COVID, Computex used to be a week-long thing, but since it came back after COVID, it's always been a 4-day event. So you've got the four motherboard vendors here: MSI, ASUS, Gigabyte, and ASRock. And you see here the list of sort of benchers or like almost like engineers. It's a mix who are participating in the world record stage. And the idea is G-Skill provides some heavily pre-bin kits, and all of the vendors use G-Skill memory exclusively, and they're on the G-Skill stage, and they try to produce world records of any sort. You know, anything from something relatively minor like, oh, you know, this is like the 24 core record in a bench that nobody benches, to potentially even memory frequency world records. And I don't want to put any pressure on anyone, but I believe I'm right in saying that Salty may be aiming at that because he's kind of a specialist in that and he's on the best board for it. So, you know, fingers crossed. Maybe we get to see a world record live on stage. But yeah, so from a casting perspective, maybe just to again, like explain that a little bit. Last year, I was in an insane time crunch, and also I didn't bring as much casting gear as I have brought this year. And the only camera, I mean, I was obviously capping the rigs, but the only camera I had in the stage area was as far away as possible from the world record stage. So I couldn't visually show the world record stage. I didn't have any mics out there. So there was not really any reason for me to cover it. This year, I will have a camera on both ends of the stage. And so the competitors are on the right-hand side. The world record stage is on the left-hand side. So if there's a dull moment in the competition, like everyone's broken down already or whatever, I at least have the choice to go over there and try to sort of discern what they're working on, which is tough because I won't have temperature monitoring. I most likely won't have audio or not good audio. But you know, you can be like, hey, the guy on the right is Elmore or whatever, you know, and then maybe I can pop out and be like, hey, what are you guys working on? And so there'll be, I can't promise anything, but there will be some baseline degree of coverage of the world record stage, time permitting. Like if the comp is just popping off, obviously that takes precedent.
Yes.
But
I did want to Flank Sinatra kind of touched on this, and he says the difference between sportscasters and you is that esports casters need to always talk even when no interesting subject exists. You would pretty much always have something. I hate the forced noise from casters. This would be different. I wish that were the case. I really wish that were the case. There are definitely, I said again. Counter. Somebody get on that.
Let's get AI on
that. The unfortunate reality is that there were definitely times where things were quite dead, and there is going to be a break, which I don't know if we're going to take a break during that time. I would probably like to. I'm going to need to eat. Unity's going to need to eat.
Yeah.
We might do some interviews in that time.
Yeah.
But I think it's an hour and a half break.
And that's how it's a lot of time scheduled, but because they obviously have to give all of the benchers the same amount of time, that 3 hours, what often happens is there's a late start because a SSD dies or something happens that means that the comp can't start because you obviously can't have it be unequal from the get-go. Like if a competitor has a legitimate question like, hey, I don't know, like my mouse doesn't work or any of those kind of things, the judges kind of go, well, that's it, the start is delayed. So
Yep.
that's also like there's obviously lunch, right? But there's also the reason that there's a scheduled break is besides having to tear down and build up the afternoon session, like tear down the morning session, build up the, set up the afternoon session, it's to have a little bit of buffer. So if you start 15 minutes late, you can finish 15 minutes late. So yeah,
Hmm.
no guarantees on actually getting a 1.5 hour break. Um, where was I going with this? Yeah,
Oh darn!
so
My midnight nap is not going to happen, is what you're saying.
yeah, absolutely not guaranteed. Um, but yeah, I just said I think you're infecting me. If I'm not taking a literal break and I'm finished eating my lunch or whatever, that's kind of one of the only times for me to go out and maybe like catch up with the judges and be like, so how are things going? Like, you know, it really is infectious, isn't it? So
You said like twice and once in 3 words.
what I mean to say is, uh, you're just cursing me. You're cursing. Uh, so what I mean to say is, if there is a reason to interact with the judges, interact with G Skill, interact with whomever, that's one of the better times to do it because they'll have their lunch in front of them and they'll be kind of decompressing, like not a lot because they've got stuff to do in the afternoon. But I may be able to grab them and say, hey, it could be even something as simple as, sorry, like I don't want to impose, but this judge in particular, or this G skill person in particular, is standing in front of one of the cameras 90% of the time, and it's screwing with the viewer experience. Like even something as simple as that. So yeah, and even though I hope my seat is going to be better than last year because that was pretty brutal, like I may literally just walk around and just stretch a bit and stuff. So yeah, that 1.5 hours goes insanely quickly. Maybe this year it'll be a little bit slower. But yeah, it's. I mean, I'm also sort of like an attendant of the expo. Like it is kind of fun to go around and like go to the G Skill, or sorry, the Zeus booth, or go to the MSI booth, ASRock, whoever else, and just kind of hang out with whoever's there. So yeah, I just because I currently have that page up, it does sort of stand out to me that MSI have the most people. Uh, so they have 5 people attending for the
Which
world record stage. So
I think Surgeman must be a masochist because not only is he
yeah,
a competitor in the competition, but he's also on the Gigabyte World stage.
yeah,
So that actually might explain why. No, wait, what? So June 4th, he's on the stage, and also June 4th, he's in the finals, or he's the last group to bench.
yeah. The world
So
record
he's
stage sort of peters out in the afternoon though, and he's in the afternoon session. So I guess he just wants to like bang out his world record scores in the morning and then go over to the other side of the stage and just pull double duty. It reminds me of like, I'm sure no one in chat likes tennis, but like there's certain formats of tennis where the best player on the team will both play singles and doubles. Like it's kind of like that where it's like, fuck, this guy is doing a lot, you know. No rest for the wicked. Sadly, no Splave. We do have Nick Shee and Alex and TL though. Uh, I have like I'm not a fanboy or anything. Um, However, I'm always curious what Azus cook up because they have an insane lineup. No, no diss on anyone else. But if you were to pick three benchers to try to crank out some legit scores, Safedisk, Elmore, and Massman, aka Scatterbencher, that's a pretty sick lineup, man. That's pretty good. I mean, no slouch for Gigabyte either. High Cookie, Surgeman, and Salty. That's a solid lineup. But
Mm-hmm.
man, Safedisk and maybe not listed, but I'd imagine that uh God, what's his name again? Granddaddy of them all for Zeus will be there too. Man, what's his name? I think he
I
may
don't know.
be on the poster. Let me go to the poster. Yeah, there's like a bigger lineup of people on this poster for some reason. Or am I imagining things? Yeah, there's a few more people on here. Scatter Search Man. No, he's not on here either. Who am I thinking of? It'll come to me, but maybe someone in chat knows. And also AMD's Samsung. So not listed in the table I just showed because he's not gonna be there with a particular vendor. It seems like, but cool to have him there for sure. That's the only person not listed on the table. Um, yeah, I just got a message from someone. It's from you. Oh, I'll be right back. Okay. Rightio. What's even left to discuss? Let's think about this. I think a topic that Matt isn't all that familiar with anyway, which is worth following. I'll just throw this link into chat one last time because this is all that I'm. This press release is what I'm working off of. Oh, I think it may be butchering the link. Let's go down to the extreme mod stage.
Ah,
So this was a staple last year as well. I I'm not into daily overclocking or case modding or any of that stuff, but just sort of glancing at the names, it seems to be a pretty similar lineup to last year. So we've got Scatterbencher pulling double duty on the extreme mod stage and on the world record stage. A lot of the other modders I don't know. I have met Mike. He's like a Dutch or Belgian guy. Who went for some of the dinners last year. Stuart Tonks is an Aussie, so I'm somewhat familiar with him. And otherwise, is of course OCN's very own Shaggy SVK. Once again,
that's right.
making a build. I'm privy to what the build is. I've seen it in action. It was being tested at G-Skill HQ all day today when I was there, but of course the big reveal will be on Tuesday. Let's not preempt that. It's cool. That's all I can say. It's a cool build. Once again in collaboration with Elmer Labs, so a lot of the like controllers and probes and things come from Elmer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like kind of rounding out the trifecta, let's say, in terms of what people on this stream may be kind of interested in. There's the Extreme Mod stage, the World Record stage, and the OC World Cup competition. What we can show on stream, what we will have cameras on, strictly the competition and the World Record stage. The mod area is literally in an entirely different section of the booth. And to be honest, it's kind of pretty static. Like it's literally a kind of workbench area with all of the rigs set up there and the builders kind of standing next to their rig ready to explain things to people walking past. So it's a lot more interesting in person than like on a stream or something. It just doesn't convey. Whereas again, I don't know how well the world record stage will convey as well on the stream, but we'll give it a go and just see how that goes. Any thoughts or questions just in terms of all that, like in terms of this press release, like what's going on there, like is there any question marks in your mind, Matt?
No, I just want to say that we're we started this. Well, Unity started this last year, and it was more of a proof of concept as far as casting goes, and it worked out fantastic. He did an excellent job, and we are going to be making incremental improvements every year. So this year, I was supposed to be there. I would love to be there. Just life events happened that really did genuinely prevent me from being able to go. And but we're having two casters. We are improving the stream quality significantly, thanks very much to a lot of the legwork from Unity. We're getting better camera setups, and hopefully, maybe next year, might be a pipe dream, but maybe we can get to the point where we have the ability to go and interview people on the OC World stage as well as the Extreme Mod stage. Because we would love to continue to promote G Skill as much as we possibly can. And this is the Extreme Mod stage is a part of the G Skill event. They're part of the event that we just can't cover this year. So I'm in a perfect world, we could go around, interview people, ask them about their builds in between different things going on in the competition. That would give the casters a moment of respite to go to the bathroom, grab something to eat, and then you could cut back to the stream. It simply can't happen this year. We didn't have the infrastructure set up for it. So let's keep an optimistic eye out that this will continue to improve for the viewers, and we can hopefully get more and more people interested, because let's face it, not everyone's into extreme overclocking. That's my wheelhouse, major. Like this is what we do. But there are plenty of people, probably more people interested in the modding stuff, and we can probably have some sort of crossover at some point where we can get some of the people who are very interested in modding be like, oh, what's this extreme overclocking thing? I've heard about it, but let's be realistic. Standard overclocking hasn't been a real thing for probably 10 years. The performance boost of processors now and the graphics card boosts means your PC is, if you've got the top end hardware, your PC is more than capable of running just about anything you're going to throw at it. Whereas back in the day, it was you actually have to overclock to get the peak performance and run things at a smooth frame rate in the instance of games, and there was a lot more headroom in the hardware. So perhaps we can get some of the people that are in the more normie camp into the extreme overclocking side of things, and we can get some of the extreme overclockers into some of the more normie camp. I've definitely been in a position where I've been tired of overclocking, but then I go and build some PCs, because I think that's how we all got started in this to some degree or another. So I think that's something we can aim for in the future, but not going to happen this year, unfortunately. So we'll give you the best quality stream we can for the extreme overclocking, and we'll try to expand in the future to the modding stuff.
Yeah, so maybe just to expand on that, there are other sources, right? Like, so G-Skill themselves have their own videography group or team that takes canned content. And last year there was Greg Oleski as well. He's not attending this year, but he always cut together really good videos of like the entire event. But there's certainly other places you can go, especially for the extreme mod stage. Like, I mean, first of all, I don't have the time, right? But like, I'm not like a canned content person. Like, I'm actually not good at like editing and finding the right angles to really show off a rig and stuff. Like, my expertise, such as it is in live streaming, and that's what I'm focusing on, and that's more than one person's job anyway. So, you know, like, you gotta fight your battles, kind of thing. But certainly, G Skill's official like YouTube channel will, at some point, you know, a few days after the end of the event, have a cut together like pretty sleek video on it that will have some scene, like some shots of course the RAM, but also the extreme mod stage. Another sort of aspect of the competition that is just completely outside of my focus is there is a prize ceremony at after the end of the final day of competition. And last year, I did not cover that. I mean, I was just completely spent after 3.5 days of like wall to wall casting, more or less, and preparing and stuff. So there's no live stream coverage of that. There wasn't last year. There won't be this year. Um, but photos and canned content of that will be available somewhere. I mean, there'll be a press release. There'll be a YouTube video or whatever. It is a nice moment. I actually, pretty much half the reason I don't try to cover it myself is I actually walk out and just drink in the moment myself as just a human being, just standing in front of the stage, watching them come out with the big novelty checks and play the music, and then a representative from Intel is there because they're a co-sponsor, and the president of G-Skill is there, and he says a few words that are translated by a translator. And I just want to experience it myself. I don't want to be there with a camera trying to cover it. So that exists. That's the reason why there's only half a day of benching on the final day, because they have to fit in the prize giving. They have to fit in all the tearing down. The venue has strict rules about when you have to be out of there. That doesn't mean that your entire booth has to just disappear that day, but certainly the stuff you want to get out of there that day, you have to get out of there at by 4:30 in the afternoon. So there's physical sort of limitations, and it's also just I'll sign off of my stream and say that's the end, the winner is X, and then I just hit the stop button and go out there and just mingle. But yeah, those things, I mean, throughout the course of 3.5 days, if someone in chat has a question, hey, I'm really interested in the Extreme Mod stage and I'm not in Taiwan, how can I find out more? And it's well, here's the press release, here's the video. There's certainly sources for that. Spit has a valid question about what part Harrowbot plays. Harrowbot, well, first of all, Alvi himself is a judge. And other Harrowbot members, Loud Silence and Hiwa, are judges. Last year there was also Young Pro. He decided not to come this year, so there's only 3 judges instead of 4, which actually makes it even more brave of them to introduce a new bench. Kudos to them. They only have 75% of the judging capacity of last year, but still they were cool with Evolve, so good on them. I mean, essentially the final arbiter over everything is G-Skill. Let's be real about that. They're the co-sponsor. They're providing the space. They're providing the hardware. At the end of the day, if there ever were a disagreement between Harrowbot and G-Skill would probably have the upper hand. But it never really comes to that. At the end of the day, it's a collaboration, and the judgment calls that have to be made are very much made pretty much 50-50 between Harrowbot and G-Skill. Intel is a co-sponsor in terms of monetary, but they do not have a day-to-day hand in the arbitration of the comp. It's Harrowbot and G-Skill together. I hope that
it's
answers
kind
your
of
question, Spit.
I think the way to look at it is G-Skill is putting on the competition to prove what their hardware is capable of. But you would say HWBot, HardwareBot are the experts. So we're the facilitators. So they are, it's I think maybe the best way to look at it is, maybe that's just the best way to look at it. They've said, we want to put this on. This is our thing, but we need the best of the best. And there's one place to get that, and that is HardwareBot. We have the competitors. We have the infrastructure. We have the judges, the people who know what they're doing. And this year and last year, we've got the casters too. So
Sure.
I think that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, infrastructure, even in the sense of the website, right? G-Skill don't want to build a website from scratch to show the stages and stuff. That's all on Harrowbot. I'm sort of running out of steam here, Matt. Feel
I am
free
too,
to
and we
like
meant to make
mention
this
any
a
other
short
stuff.
stream.
The one thing I can kind of sneak peek, like a lot of stuff, I have some info on, but it's not public. Um, oh, why won't it let me? Oh yeah, hold on. I want to go here. Ooh, something's wrong. Ah, here we go. What did? Why did Salty just say what? Let me hide this source. So I believe this is the same design that the judges are going to be wearing. So this is my shirt. Uh, so that's the design for this year, which is different to last year's design. There's my name. I think the judges have their name on the back though. I just have a G-Skill logo, and then on the sleeves there's the two sponsors, the co-equal sponsors. So one sleeve has G-Skill, and one sleeve has Intel on it. So yeah, that's. I mean, I can't guarantee I'll be wearing it every day because it's like 100 million degrees outside, and I only got two copies of this shirt. So maybe sometimes I'll revert back to just a generic G School shirt because I don't want to smell. But this is for sure on day one, and on the finals day I'll be wearing this because this is the design for this year. So there's your little sneak peek of what I'll be wearing. Not that anyone is interested, and otherwise I'm totally out. We've gone for almost 2 hours. So, any last thoughts, Matt? Yeah, because it's middle of the night for you. By the way, did you pick medium? Because it's borderline, man. Like I wish I'd gone large. It's like it's gonna be a skin tight fit, but it does fit me. But you know, Asian clothing sizes, they're just insane. I believe one of the I won't mention the judge because like maybe they're self conscious about like their big person. One of the judges had to go 3XL, and like in European sizes, he's more like an L. So Asian sizes are very different to the rest of the world. Me too. Like, but I just know from Asian sizes that I think what I'm wearing now is an Asian L, and it's not massively baggy on me. I just knew that an Asian S, like a white person can't wear that, man. Like, medium is the absolute lower limit to what what like a like a European or American can wear.
A very short stream just to do some testing, and it's turned into what almost 2 hours. So Unity needs to rest, get his voice up ready for the competition. I have stuff I've got to get done today, but yeah, thank you all
Yeah.
so much for joining.
And of course, what would this stream be without yet another audio bug? So I hadn't like done the fix to the audio to that other scene. But guys, you didn't miss much. We were just shit talking about Asian like sizes of clothing and stuff. Yeah, thanks all for tuning in. Um, I think this will probably be the last stream with Matt and I before the comp really kicks off.
Mhm.
I'm also not sure if I'll have the time to do any kind of pre-streaming. Like maybe on the day, depending on how the setup is like gelling, I might be able to go live like 15 minutes early and do a little bit of like a talk of like these are the competitors, this is what they're good at, bad at, whatever, like what they're known for, who they're benching for, what hire and stuff. But in terms of an actual standalone stream on another day, we're getting so close now. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. Oh, Salty says, "See you there." Yeah, I haven't met Salty yet, but the reason for that is he hangs out with the alcoholics, and I'm an old man who doesn't drink anymore, so that's why we haven't met. We're also staying in different hotels,
Uh,
but yeah, looking forward to that, Salty. Good luck on the world record stage, and thanks all for watching. Thanks, Matt, for joining, and next time we hear and see each other, it's gonna be on the floor of Computex, so it's really getting close now. I'm excited.
I am too. It's going to be awesome.
Bye guys, thanks for watching.